as we're sitting here, how would you describe the difference right now?
It's just that I know that I'm okay. I know that whatever happens is a separate thing to how I am. It's not, they're two separate things. Stuff can happen, but I can be okay regardless. And the only time I'm not okay is when I think I'm not okay.
And what happens then when you think you're not okay?
What used to happen then was I would believe that thought and I would spiral. And I would analyze it and I would spiral down. But now when I think I'm not okay, I pretty much don't take notice of it. I pretty much just look, well, that's just a thought. How I am is not what I think. They're just not the same thing. And I hadn't got them in my head before as separate things. And somehow, I don't know how you did it, because I had an understanding before we spoke. I had the knowledge, but somehow you separated out thought as something entirely separate to whether I'm okay. They're just, to me, they are just so separate now. And sure, I do get stuck and I get upset and I get whatever, but it's just irrelevant.
Now that seems like night and day from when we talked a few months ago.
It's unbelievable, but it was only that one conversation, and we spent an hour or so chatting. And it was only that one conversation that something broke through in that conversation somehow that made me realize that it is all right. It's all right to feel, because I was trying so hard to always be happy and to always look on the bright side, and the pressure of trying to do that was just, it just built up, and once the pressure got too much, I'd crash down. Now I just go through a normal range of emotions that just feels, yeah, it's cool. And it's cool particularly because there is a lot of stuff going on in my life at the moment. And it's, if life can be like this with all the challenges I've got, then it can only be easier. And it's not, there's, I suppose the big message is there's nothing to do. And we're so hooked up and conditioned and advertised to or sold, you must do this, you must have that. But there's nothing to do because it's already there. I just couldn't see it under all the other stuff.
Tell me more about the other stuff. What was that? No, can I ask that differently? I like to ask that differently.
Good, because I didn't understand.
So effectively, what you've said is that you know you're okay underneath all this other stuff. How do you see all this other stuff now?
A lot of the time, it's not there. It just doesn't get in the way. We all have stuff that we need to do, practical stuff. We have that sort of stuff, but it doesn't get in the way and it doesn't control how I can feel.
So here's what I do know. You must see that stuff differently than you did 3 months ago. Today than you did then.
I see it differently, yeah, but I also don't get caught in focusing on it.
That's really cool.
And that's the thing that makes a difference for me. I was getting caught in something, and a thought would come along, I'd grab hold of it, and I would build it into something that felt so real that I couldn't see beyond it. Now, the majority of the time, I don't see the point of looking at it. It's like the telly that's playing a program in the corner of the room, and it's there, but it's just not worth my time looking at it. It's just, I don't need to do that. And occasionally, yeah, sure, but generally it's just not worth my time. I don't need to do it. And that doesn't mean I don't get the things done that need doing, because obviously you do, but that I've noticed that so much of what comes to mind doesn't need anything doing with it. It doesn't need my attention. And if it doesn't get my attention, it doesn't get built into something that makes me feel bad. It doesn't need to.
It just reminds me of what it's like again to witness, because we all go through it. Every single one of us, the 7 billion of humans on this planet, go through the same thing every minute, every hour, every day, when we're conscious, right, when we're awake, of having feelings, having thoughts that created those feelings, not see that's what's going on, and then innocently try to fix how we feel, and think there's something wrong with having a feeling that we don't particularly like.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the thoughts seemed important. They seemed like, well, I've got to do something with this. I've either got to work out why it's there and what I need to do with it, or where it's come from, or how to change it. And they change by themselves anyway. So I might as well be doing something I want to be doing, and they're going to do their own thing anyway, and we can just go along quite happily like that together. I knew this stuff before we spoke, but it just wasn't connecting with me, because I was afraid of different ways I was feeling. So the idea of letting myself stay afraid instead of fixing it was just too scary. But in letting myself stay afraid, I've actually realized, well, that goes quicker than anything else anyway. Even though I know amazing therapy techniques which would change it incredibly quickly, but they were creating a false way of living for me. They were really creating, I was trying to manage pretty much every state that came along. And that got to the point where I couldn't do anything else. I'd given up work. I was at home, and my day would be spent effectively treating my feelings in all kinds of cool ways, but I didn't need to do it. But because I believed so completely there was something wrong with me, then if there's something broken, you fix broken things. And until I could get beyond, well, I'm not broken and I don't need fixing, I'm just human and not allowing myself to be. And most of the time the thoughts just flow. And I'm really not that bothered what they're doing. It's just kind of cool that from a place where I was so stuck and trapped and just completely didn't believe I'd ever be free. And even in the times I thought I was free, I look at that now, I think, That wasn't freedom. That was less trapped. But how much freedom I aspired to having was just so small anyway, compared to what I've got now. I mean, we've spoken about how it's been weird to have the space I have now. And that's quite an eye-opener for me, that actually, yeah, it's a bit weird to have choice. And I suppose that's where I'm at now, getting used to the fact that I have choice, because I thought I'd never get that.
And what's amazing to me in that is that seeing that for myself, and well, for all of us, yesterday on the tube when I was tired, a little bit irritable, and then all of a sudden, a different song came on my iPod, and I was tingly. I felt like I had not only was my job awesome and what I was doing for a living was phenomenal, but deeper than that, the experience of being alive was so fantastic to me. And I just felt privileged to be able to breathe, even though I was breathing inside, the false confines of an underground or the Northern Line between Waterloo and Camden in London. And it was just bizarre, a bizarrely beautiful understanding of what life was. And then instantly I remembered I hadn't finished a report for somebody, and then I went woof right down. And then by the time the song had finished, and it's 3.5 minutes, I was up and down like a yo-yo. Now that to me 5 years ago would have been a problem. I'd have thought there was something wrong with me because I was doing that within 3.5 minutes. What's wrong with me? I've got all these thoughts and feelings that come in. Well, now I just see that as that's the human experience. That's what we all have that going on all the time. It means nothing other than that's what it's like to be alive. And because of knowing that, as you've just described beautifully, that, well, there's nothing to fix if that's what's always happening. Nothing to fix. Nothing wrong with any of us, really. Not psychologically. It's amazing. Sorry.
That's okay. I think that's the thing, though. It's, for me, I've watched things like this before, and I've listened to radio shows, and I've heard it all, but it's really, when you really get there is nothing to fix, and that you cannot fix a feeling. And trust me, I've tried really hard, and I'm pretty good at it, and I know a lot of ways to fix feelings, but you don't really, because they're going to come along, and I have absolutely zero control over what's going to come along. And I mean, even a couple of months ago, I'd have hated the idea that I can't control what's going to come along, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to train my brain to do what. Oh my God, it's a relief that I've got no control.
Wow.
I don't need the control. And I thought I did. But in not having it and not working to try and create it, then it's just, there's nothing for me to do other than just let life happen. And it doesn't mean let myself feel bad, because that's where I was stuck. It's like, well, I feel bad and I'm going to do nothing about it. But it doesn't last. It genuinely, once I felt connected to the fact that I am healthy, I'm mentally healthy, I know that's who I am. So the bad feelings that everybody gets, they don't last, and they go away quicker, and they don't come as often. And I don't mind when they do. In fact, they've hardly come at all, actually. I mean, we first spoke a couple of months ago, and when I have had a feeling that's not very nice, then I've just realised, well, yeah, that's pretty normal. Everyone would feel pretty bad if they kind of had that going on in their head. They'd get scared at that. But it's a story I'm making up that's giving myself a feeling. And I don't need to do that. And I don't want to give that my time. I'd rather take the dog for the walk.
I think the other thing in that as well is that when we sometimes catch ourselves that we're the ones doing the story and it's my thinking that's creating my feelings, it's thought that's creating my feeling, then it looks like blame for a while. It looks like, oh no, it's my fault, all of this stuff. Well, what I'm hearing in you is that you know that's not true, is that we're all innocent, because it looks like it's a good idea to try and fix a feeling because it works in the outside world. If I've got a leaky tap, I'm going to try either to call a plumber, which is probably quite wise, or I'll try to change the washer myself. But in the world of it inside us, there is no such need for us to fix something that's completely transient, completely normal and self-correcting. And we will try because we think it's a good idea. And that's innocent too. So we're completely off the hook.
Absolutely. For me, it was having the faith that just stop doing everything for a minute. Let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. And it was finding the faith and the space to, well, might as well give this a go because, to be honest, I tried everything else. I tried everything that can be offered, conventional and complementary. I've done it all. And to some extent, things helped. But it just didn't last and it didn't give me a real experience of life. It's like I sent you a message about, I think I mentioned in there about confidence and how it's different now. It's not a case of you're trying to create the confidence. It's a case of you're trying to just, well, you're not even trying, you're just letting it flow. And it's the feelings are very different now. They're not manufactured. And there's something very different about how they are and how they come and go. And how it's okay for them to come and go. I mean, I was quite a control freak. I was trying to control everything. And to realise I don't need it.
I thought I'd love to hear what out in the real world, right? The difference in your life now. Not just the inside part of it, but what it's meant. How your life's playing out now than it did a few months ago. Tell me a little bit more about that.
The real world was a really scary place to go out in. I was scared to go out the door. And for a long time, I would look out the window from the kitchen and think, well, that's a scary place to go out into, and I didn't want to go out there. And I was heavily restricted how much I could afford to be out. And then when I would go out, it would be, well, I don't want to be out for longer than an hour, for example, which is not your way to try and live your life. But I was just scared all the time. Now, it's kind of, there's just nothing wrong with it. Now I just go out, I turn up, I show up. I have no idea what's going to happen, who I'm going to meet, who I'm going to bump into, what conversation. I just don't know what's coming up, but I don't need to know. Whereas before I was very much, because I was so anxious, I was trying to work out in my head everything that might happen in advance, which you can't do because you've got no control of it out there anyway. But I would just, in that, create so much thought, and I'd feel bad before I went out. I wouldn't even know what it's going to be like anyway. So I was just making stuff up because I didn't know how not to worry about it. I thought I had to find a way to relax, find a way to be confident, find a way to do whatever. And I just needed to do less, do much, much less. Whereas in my world, I was doing more all the time. And I was going completely the wrong way to get what I wanted.
Because classically, that's how it looks, right?
It is, it's how it looks. And it's just a simplistic thing is when something's broken, you think it needs fixing. And it wasn't until I knew, well, actually, you're not broken. Well, then logically, you can't need fixing. Logic just took over. You just cannot need to fix something that's not broken.
Mm.
And I guess before I always had in my head, there would be a range of positive emotions and there'd be a range of negative emotions. To me, they're not now, they're just emotions. It's not negative to feel sad. It's normal. It's not, it doesn't matter. You don't want to get stuck anywhere because you want to experience a range of emotions. You don't want to feel, sometimes it's appropriate to feel sad. So why would you not want to do that? But to me, I was trying to sort of live in one section of emotions as such. I mean, I see now how much hard work I was creating for myself. Well intentioned, but it's almost unbelievable that I don't need to do anything. That's just kind of, I'm still, I mean, it's a couple of months since we spoke first time, and I'm still in that, really? It's that simple? And some of the time I'm totally fine with it, and then it'll come over me, and it did when we were speaking earlier. It's like, so you're basically saying I need to do nothing and I'll be okay. And it really is. And for me, that when I was on the other side of feeling like this, that's really hard to believe. That's really, I feel bad and you want me to do nothing about it. I mean, what's the, I mean, you laugh, it is laughable because genuinely it's putting the trust in the human experience and realizing, well, it's working for a lot of people, you know, maybe I'm human.
Well, I think the access is in that all of us have had a time when we, regardless of how dark things, even the darkest of days, there's time during that day that we're not feeling that. And when we just get a glimpse of the fact that our feelings fluctuate an awful lot more than circumstances do, an awful lot more than what we think is an episode of any condition that we have, psychological condition, that, well, if that's transient, if that's not static, what else is at play? There must be something else here. So it's, to my mind anyway, it chips away at the reality of I have this, I am this, which means that maybe there's something else going on. Maybe the only thing that is going on, exactly as you said, you know, I think far more succinctly and powerful, I mean, I'm pointing out right now, is that we're having a human experience. And whatever the human experience is a human experience.
Yeah.
And every feeling, everything we have is transient. It goes on its own accord. Always. And when I hear people say, yeah, but it always comes back. But the fact that it comes back must mean that it's gone away. If it was, but it's always here, the different conversation, then we talk about something else, but it always comes back, which means it always goes away, which means there's something else up, right? Which means that it's not how my life is or how I'm wired. It means that I've got transient feelings based upon transient thoughts that come in and go out. And when we let that system do its thing, we're far more free than we ever thought possible.
I think the difference that really helped me was that I could recognize all of that, and you know that it's coming and going, but it's when you really trust that you're okay and it's going to come and go and you're okay regardless. Because for me, I'd noticed things come and go, but because I never trusted that actually I am okay and I am not broken, that's the part that I needed. I really needed to trust that it's okay. And I didn't before. Some of the time I'd be, yeah, this is fine. But oh my God, panic, I feel bad. I've got to do something about it.
Well, tell me what made you decide to trust it, if you can, because that's a big question, right?
I don't know. I didn't trust it when I came on that call with you the first time. And I didn't have any expectations. I just kind of knew you, known you for a while. And I thought, oh, I'll catch up with an old friend, really. I didn't trust it. I guess I didn't believe that it was going to be okay. But I don't know what happened in that call. I really don't. You should have recorded that one. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened that shifted it, other than we realized that I'd got myself on the hook for having to be in a good place all the time. And I'd got this almost obsession with having obviously had a struggle with depression for so long that I'm going to relapse. And in my worry about I'm going to feel bad again, well, that would make me feel bad, worrying about feeling bad. And then I'd say, well, it's happened, I feel bad now. And then I'd spiral off with all sorts of stuff. So I think taking the pressure off and getting myself off the hook and realizing, well, yeah. And I remember you saying, I can't think what it was I was explaining, but I was explaining something to you, and you turned around and you said to me, yeah, that's normal, that's human. I was like, yeah, thanks for that one. Because I'd separated myself off probably from being human and being almost to try and create this robotic experience of life is allowed to be a certain way. And if you're not like that, then there's something wrong.
Wow. That's a lovely realization, I think. And I think that anyone who gets a glimpse of that they're off the hook to try and manage all of that stuff and they're fine. Find exactly, all of us are exactly how we are. And all
I
we've
think
got
for me,
is some
it's
thinking,
just
sorry, go on.
the difference is that because nothing in my life is different, but I feel completely different. And my days are different. I'm doing the same things, but feeling differently. I think if my circumstances had changed, I probably wouldn't have believed in what we're talking about. I wouldn't have believed it because I thought, oh, well, everything's changed in my life, so of course I feel happy now. And I think it's because circumstances are challenging and I feel better in those that it's given me such faith in myself. And I didn't trust myself to be okay before, but I needed to have that faith and trust in myself. And I probably needed to get that whilst being challenged. because that just makes it for me so much more powerful. Because pretty much everyone, when everything's wonderful in their life, it, not necessarily, I mean, you can still feel bad then, but it's a lot easier to feel good when life's going well. I just wish I'd known years ago. I didn't have
I
to
know.
try so hard and work so hard at it.
I know. But it's as soon as we see it, it's ours to keep. It's yours to keep now.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that.